right, so welcome to Shark Talk. Skyler Thomas and Dan Abbott. We are both shark advocates and filmmakers, and today we are joined by Lalo Saidy, who has been doing this for much longer, well, longer than Dan and I both, and has accumulated a crazy amount of experience with these animals. And Lalo, let's introduce you and Dan first of all. You guys haven't ever met, have you?
One time in Gansbaii.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, in front of my office.
What were the circumstances of that meeting?
I think you came down to meet Philip Jr. or some of you were passing through with your volunteers.
That's right. Yeah. Philip, our old skipper from Mossel Bay. Now
actually, you were with You were with Gibbs. That's why.
Okay. Yeah.
Good old Gibbs.
Good old Gibbsy.
So Lalo and I met in 2004. My first time to South Africa and my first time seeing white sharks. And Lalo, you were working as a videographer on one of the cage dive boats?
Yeah, that's right. I worked for Global Ocean Services at the time, so we used to film on all the different boats and go out, film the clients, sell the movies at the end of the day.
I remember. And you have pretty much been there ever since. I mean, a couple of trips back home and to Europe and whatnot, but I mean, your life has pretty much been the white sharks. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I've been a guide and a cameraman here for about 14 years now.
Wow. 14 years. And in recent years, you've started getting to come over to Guadeloupe during that season and then go back to South Africa. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between working in South Africa and working in Guadeloupe?
Yeah, for about 3 years now. This is going to be my fourth season. I've been the white shark guide and dive instructor in Guadeloupe. So from August and November, I'm out of San Diego, and then the rest of the year, I'm back in South Africa. Yeah, each place has its own attraction. I mean, South Africa, obviously, with the dirtier water, the sharks are built for speed and reaching. So the surface action is what draws you to South Africa. Obviously, the visibility in Guadeloupe is what Guadeloupe is all about. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to see the two differences. You miss a lot here, I guess, in the dirtier water. So it's cool in Guadeloupe to see the body language and how they interact together and the different things that they do. It's pretty interesting.
Dan, you've never been to Guadeloupe yet, right?
No, not yet.
All right. You got any questions for Lalo about Guadeloupe compared to
Yeah, is there any major differences in what they're hunting between South Africa and Guadeloupe?
You don't really see them hunting in Guadeloupe. I mean, it's believed that they do it a lot deeper. Obviously, with the clean water, they don't have the same tactics as South Africa. Again, we believe they hit the seals and the elephant seals in deeper water, but you never really see any hunting at the island. You usually see the seals following the sharks and nipping at the sharks and so forth. But yeah, you never see any actual hunting. Whereas in South Africa, if you're lucky enough, in the winter months, you'll see the breaching and so forth.
Mm.
Obviously, in Mossel Bay, you guys have some pretty good breaching as well. It's always an awesome thing to see. You can't beat that.
Absolutely.
So why breaching in Mossel Bay and False Bay and not Gansbaii?
We get the breaching in Gansbaii. It's just not as consistent. I think False Bay is the best, just because of the depth of the water. You're looking at about, what is it? I think it's 10 meters in Gansbaii. I don't know what it is in Mossel Bay around the island, but in
about
False
12,
Bay,
yeah.
obviously, it's 15 to 20 meters, if not deeper.
Yeah, it's quite a sheer drop-off, isn't there, in Seal Island, False Bay?
It's completely different setup from the other two places.
A lot of the operators in Guadeloupe tell me that they breach and predate in Guadeloupe, and I just don't ever see it. But most people I talk to don't see it, so I'm not sure what to think of that information.
Well, the past 3 seasons, we've had quite a few breaches. It's been pretty amazing. I don't know. You hear different things. Like people will say they breach to get rid of parasites. I don't know if that's really true. I think it's more so, especially here in Gansbaii, when you're working around the boats in the dirtier water. I think when they breach for no reason, or you see them breach, I think it's a quick escape to get away from another shark. Maybe they charge each other, and it's just a quick dart, breach the surface, and get away from the other shark. It's hard to say. I mean, that's what's so fascinating about white sharks is they have all these behaviors, but at the end of the day, we'll never truly know why they do what they do.
So I'm going to clarify for people that are a little bit new to this concept. It's because a lot of people learned about breaching from watching Air Jaws, and so you associate that breach with preying on a seal, an ambush attack. But that doesn't have to be the reason that the shark is breaching. And the ones that you've witnessed in Guadalupe, there wasn't a pinniped that you saw. It was just leaping out of the water for some reason.
Just leaping. Yeah, that's correct.
You got a pretty good video of that, didn't you, Skyler? In Mossel Bay?
Yeah, I got a pretty good video of a white shark breaching for no clear reason in Mossel Bay. The mouth was closed the entire time. He did a rotation in the air. It was pretty impressive.
Lalo, what sort of size would you say the sharks are that you see breaching in Guadalupe?
It's hard to tell because, usually it's in the distance. We have had a couple close to the boat. Usually it's the smaller sharks. I mean, we see it more in August and September. But I'd say between that 7 to 10 foot range.
So it would make sense then with what you said a moment ago with the theory of getting out of the way of a larger shark if it tends to be the smaller ones that you see coming out of the water.
Yeah, because I mean, as long as the other shark is below it, it's a threat to the shark above it. So who knows why they really do it, if the other shark is charging it or if it's, again, it's difficult to say. But I think with Skyler's shot there, I mean, in Mossel Bay, you obviously have more sharks around the boat. So I remember that shot. You were filming the one shark coming, but that shark was further away at the bow. Maybe it did get charged by another shark.
That was the prevailing theory. I mean, honestly, none of us can say absolutely for sure, but we did have different sizes of sharks, pretty broad range of different sizes, some surprisingly small ones, and I don't know, what was the biggest one? Maybe a 13-footer that day, 12 to 13, or is that generous? They're always bigger when I think back.
Yeah, it's probably a tad generous.
Okay. Well, in any case, we think that the sharks are always so amazingly alert, but we saw a few cases where the sharks were in tunnel vision and had no idea the other shark was there until the last minute. So they can get a little bit of a fright and want to get out of the way of a much larger shark.
Lalo,
I mean, I think that's what I find interesting in Guadalupe, because with the visibility, obviously you can see more happening. So what I've seen in Guadalupe, which you don't see in South Africa, so I don't know if they do it here, is, I mean, they definitely gape at each other to make themselves look bigger. But what's cool in Guadalupe is they tend to do this thing called, I think Burrito calls it the head shake. As they gape at another shark, then they start thrusting their head back and forth. And I've never seen that in South Africa. I've only ever seen it in Guadalupe.
Oh, that is interesting. Wow. And you were alluding to a possible theory that the visibility is bad enough in Guadalupe that the head shaking just wouldn't be effective?
No, I mean, you mean in South Africa?
Yeah, Gansbaii.
No, I mean, just with the visibility, we just wouldn't see it. Like, who knows if they are doing it.
You wouldn't see it. So you don't know if the sharks
are doing it. We wouldn't see it from the boat or the cage. I mean, you always see it deeper in the water in Guadalupe, like way down below the cages. You see it doing it to another shark that's maybe coming in, or you don't always see the shark that it's doing it to, but it's just an amazing behavior to see. I just remember the first time I saw it, I was fascinated. I couldn't believe I was seeing the shark do this thing. It was just different,
I see that the live stream is actually showing up in YouTube a little bit, so I'm just going to invite our viewers. Lalo's got 14 years of experience with these animals in 2 of the major locations on the planet, so think of some questions and put them in the comments of the live stream and we'll try to get to you. I also want to scroll through some of your photographs since we can see it now. And if you can't see it live, I'll just tell you what we're looking at. First one is a split shot from Guadeloupe. And did you, how was your experience with doing split shots prior to South Africa? I mean, prior to going to Guadeloupe?
I've done a couple here in South Africa, but for me, it's what I love doing in Guadeloupe. It's my favorite way of shooting the sharks. You know, most of the time I'm on the dive platform, so if I'm not in the water, it's just a chance for me to just drop the camera in. And, you know, I try to find my own style. So the 50-50s are what would have kind of worked for me lately. So on Instagram, everybody seems to love those ones the most. But yeah, it's cool to get that half shot. I love
for the photography geeks out there. What are your tactics? Talk us through how you get a shot like that.
You know, like, funnily enough, like all my shots, I point and shoot. I just, you know, trying to get the angle, trying to get the lens wide enough, so that you get the whole shark in frame. But yeah, most of the time I'm just sticking the camera in the water and shooting blind. So, my best shots have been shooting blind, not actually looking through the viewfinder or so forth.
Must be a pretty happy moment then when you look back and get a shot like that.
And you get the shot, yeah. I think my favorite shot from last season is the one with the shark breaching out of the water. I had the camera water level, and I just tracked the shark up, and it came out of the water open mouth.
Oh. Have you got that one, Skyler?
Let's scroll through. It's Lalo's feed, so let's. That one's pretty cool. It's underwater, but it's got the full body of the shark. I think there's a significant delay, so unfortunately you guys might not be able to see it, but it's showing the belly of the shark, and he's about to take the bait. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, that's magnificent. You guys just pretend like you can see it. I'll edit it over there later. But yeah, pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah. It's changing. It's changing now.
Okay. I'm gonna assume that the South African internet is even worse. So Lalo.
Oh no, I'm still watching myself talk about 5 minutes ago.
All right, you can give us a delayed reaction to the photo a little while later. This one's gorgeous with the light patterns on the sharks. That's something that really stood out to me the first time I went to Guadeloupe. When I came back and was looking at my footage, I was just like, wow, I can make a film just about how the light reflects off their skin. And I had never noticed that in South Africa, personally. The water wasn't clear enough to ever enjoy that.
I mean, so as a photographer, like I guess the difference is Guadeloupe for me can get boring because every day the visibility is the same. So you have no reference. You got to find that perfect shot with the shark. Whereas in South Africa, one day you have brown water, you have green water, you have clean water. So it adds to the story of the photo. But yeah, with Guadeloupe, you can use the sunlight. You know, you can work with it. But if the shark's not really doing anything, then of course every photo looks the same.
So you're saying it's almost too easy in Guadeloupe, or?
No, I just find that every shot kind of ends up looking the same. So you really need that shark to be performing and to get the shots you want. Otherwise it's just with the no reference and it's just blue water. Your photos just kind of look the same as everybody else's.
So let's go back to when we met, and because that was you'd only been there a little while longer than me, right?
I came in July 2004, and I think you came. When did you come again?
I feel like it had to have been in the summer, because I was. It was between grad school courses.
Summer in the States, winter in South Africa. Yeah, because because we were working at the island back then.
And so we did a lot of drinking. It's a small town, and if you're not out on the ocean, you're in the pub. And I don't know if drinking is to blame for it, but had a little impromptu idea to go out to Shark Alley between Giza Rock and Dyer Island, and in the little rubber ducky, and see what happened. And that, interestingly enough, even though it's not a particularly good video I did, it's one of the first ones I did, that one has gotten attention on YouTube because YouTubers like to apparently be mean to people. So we've gotten quite a collection of comments about how stupid that was for me to go snorkeling in Shark Alley. And I just want to introduce everyone to the man who was nice enough to take me out there and say, yeah, get in the water.
Did you have any second thoughts about it, either of you?
Oh, sure.
Not really, because we used to do it quite a bit. I mean, it was part of our trips back in the day. I used to do a lot of seal dives up in Shark Alley. So yeah,
really?
I mean, on scuba, there's not too much to worry about. But yeah, snorkeling, you're at the surface. Obviously, it's a bit different.
Well, yeah.
Like I remember, funnily enough, I think it was after we went. There was one afternoon where we went diving in Shark Alley, and we were right next to Hospital Rock, closer to the rocks, kind of in the little kelp bed there, and we were just diving there, didn't think anything of it. The very next morning, I was like, well, there's no way a shark would go that close to the rock. The very next morning, we went out there with the clients, and we dropped anchor in the same place. And as we pulled back, there was a 3.5-meter white shark swimming right where we had been diving the day before.
That's some of the comments have been, oh, that's not dangerous because you were relatively close to the rocks. But as you alluded to, and as Chris Fallows has told me, and as Andrew Fox has told me, sharks will hunt right up next to the rocks.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know they went that close till I saw it for myself.
After seeing it that close to the rocks, did you then dive that spot again?
I can't remember if we ever did. I think we used to dive more towards the kelp beds after that. But yeah,
that's
because it's a bit. It was a bit difficult because you have clients, so you're responsible for the clients and stuff. Like, it's actually crazy looking at. We're no longer allowed to dive at the island, but it's crazy that back in the day, considering it was the white shark capital of the world and you're in Shark Alley, it's crazy that we actually used to dive there. But yeah, I mean, nothing ever happened to anybody.
The kelp beds, we did 2 dives. Well, the first one wasn't a dive, it was snorkeling, which you just admitted was dangerous, and scuba diving is okay. So you were trying to get rid of me. You were trying to get rid of me.
Yeah, pretty much. I wouldn't say dangerous. It's just, obviously instinct of the white shark, anything at the surface that creates a shadow naturally is supposed to be food. And it was late in the afternoon, so I mean, I wouldn't say stupid. It was just, on scuba, it's a completely different thing. They know you're not natural on scuba, but snorkeling at the surface, obviously you're more out of your element, and if they want to charge you, then they will charge you. Whereas on scuba at the bottom, they just kind of more investigate you.
Okay. So the shark's not necessarily going to do something, but if you had to choose out of those 2 water activities, scuba would probably be the better choice if you don't want the shark to do some sort of an aggressive investigation.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think on record there's only been 2 documented attacks on scuba divers. The one was obviously in Mossel Bay in the late 80s, but she was at the surface swimming back to the boat. And then I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, the lady in Australia. So I mean, the frequency of attacks on scuba divers is not a lot. There's, I think, like I said, only 2 documented cases, but obviously everybody saw that video that went viral a couple months ago, that I think abalone diver in Australia going down the hose pipe, and all of a sudden that big shark just comes out of the gloom at him.
Oh yeah, that ended up being Ron Elliott. That ended up being here at the Fairlands. I first saw it coming out of a Facebook page in South Africa, so I thought it was South Africa or Australia, but that was that guy who goes, who used to go urchin diving, or maybe it was abalone, out at the Farallon Islands, and he goes alone. He goes out on his boat alone and is on the hookah tube. And
I've read about him.
He has a little camera attached to his hose that captures some pretty crazy stuff, and that one was pretty darn crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously when you're diving, especially if you're talking white sharks, visibility is the biggest factor. You know, you really want like 15 to 20 meters with a white shark because you want to see them coming. You want to see if there's other sharks around. Obviously, the worse the viz, the more at risk you are.
Oh, about the viz, just going back to the differences between Guadeloupe and South Africa. Obviously, you see lots of different behaviours from the sharks interacting with their surroundings, whether that's the boat, the cage, the bait, whatever it is. Are there any noticeable differences between the way they behave with a cage full of people in South Africa as opposed to Guadeloupe?
I think you don't really see, I mean, you do get the odd curious shark that'll come and mouth the cage in Guadeloupe. But obviously, again, like being on scuba, we use the regulators in the cage. So I think the bubbles keep them a bit at bay. Whereas in South Africa, because people are on the breath hold method, if you have that inquisitive shark, it's going to come up to the cage, it's going to mouth it, and so forth. So I think you see that more in South Africa than you do in Guadeloupe.
Do you think it's also maybe the case that they can see it from further away? They've kind of made their minds up early on about what's going on and feel comfortable?
I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, probably that they do see it at bay. I mean, keep them at bay, but I think it's just more curiosity that brings them closer to the cages. You know, you got different, what do you call it, like magnetic fields coming off it in the water. Maybe that draws their curiousness. It's really hard to say why a shark, again, does what it does.
So I've got a video playing in the background, and that was me reuniting with you, Lalo, in 2014 when I was there with Martin for filming. Well, I went there to talk about O-Search and ended up talking about shark culling because Western Australia was about to introduce shark culling. But yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff that day, and there have been some changes in the ecology of the area. I asked you, you know, would you take me out there to dive in Shark Alley again? And you basically said it wasn't really possible or something to that extent. Can you clarify why I couldn't dive there?
Yeah, it became a banned activity from Gansbaii Harbor all the way to Coon Point. Unfortunately, in South Africa, I mean, I'll just talk about it briefly. There is a poaching problem. So because of the poachers, us scuba divers were no longer allowed in the water. It's a no dive zone. So thanks to their activities, it's just banned for the rest of us. So I think it was in about 2007 or so we stopped diving up at the island.
Wow. Okay, so that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
But even if I were to break the rules and dive there, I would just be diving in full on overgrown kelp, right?
Yeah, now it would be full overgrown kelp.
And what's interesting about that for people who are just learning about the ecology of the area and the importance of kelp is how white sharks and seals, how that affects white sharks and seals. And, you know, I don't want to put on too much conjecture in case I'm incorrect, but my understanding was that the seals could take protection inside the kelp forest. And
I think a smaller shark, a juvenile shark, if it really wanted to, depending on how thick the kelp is, I mean, I think they would still try to go for it. But again, nobody's really ever seen that happen. They usually hunt on the edge of the kelp bed. But in terms of what Shark Alley was like when we went, there was only a few pieces of kelp, but now the whole alley is completely covered. So the hunting strategy for the sharks has changed completely. They no longer can really go into Shark Alley itself.
Wow. So Shark Alley no longer is welcoming to sharks, basically.
Not really. I think they'd be pretty hard pressed to get in there.
Have you noticed any other hotspots developing outside of Shark Alley then, where they're having more success than anywhere else hunting?
Like everything has changed here. When I started, we had a system that you could rely on. So the sharks would start behind the island outside Shark Alley, and we'd move around the top of the island to the front to the Hellstein, which is where they breach and hunt the seals at the drop off. And then we would move down to the beach. So we had a circular pattern that we kind of worked in. But now, over the past few years, it's either been the Hellstein, the front of the island, or the beach. And then we've had a couple of years where the sharks never even left the beach. We stayed at the beach year round. So something has changed here, and we just don't really know what it is or why they do it.
We've been seeing a lot on social media that Juan Sharks and Ocean Ramsey were there trying to find some white sharks, and they were also having some difficulty. And that's a weird thing to say about the white shark capital of the world. And the kelp isn't the only thing that has affected the sharks there. What can you tell viewers what else has been taking place in Gansbaii specifically?
Yeah, unfortunately for us, 2017 was our worst year on record, and that was pretty much due to the arrival of 2 killer whales that came into our bay. And, when they first came, all the sharks disappeared, but then they came back at the end of April, and it was at the beginning of May we realized what they were doing here, which was hunting and killing our white sharks. Because in quick succession, we had about 3 or 4 white sharks wash up on the beach with their livers removed. So it was kind of bittersweet in the sense that we lost our sharks, but at the same time, with the sharks washing up on the beach, it was the first time that people got to perform a necropsy on a dead white shark. So we learned what the killer whales actually do to a white shark, how they kill them. And for me, I was fascinated because as a white shark guide, we talk about all this stuff with people and try to explain it on the boat. But to see the shark in front of you and see it from the inside out and learn about the things you're always talking about, it was interesting and cool to be a part of that. But yeah, unfortunately, we lost our sharks, and it was most of last year that we went without sharks. And about 2 weeks ago, the 2 killer whales came back again, and we've lost all our sharks again.
Holy moly! And you told me something about, is it bronze whalers moved in?
Yeah, so we were working with bronze whalers. They came, I think, August, and then they really started working in about November. And it was crazy. I mean, I'm talking, you have about 12, 14 bronze whalers in front of your cage, just circling around each other. It was actually, at the end of the day, like the clients were loving it more than white sharks because they're so interactive. And then when the white sharks were back, we did have the mix of white sharks with bronzies. Some days they would work together. Other days, the white shark would scare the bronze whalers away. So yeah, it was interesting. But we pretty much became the bronze whaler capital of the world.
And so
interestingly enough, False Bay, who hasn't had white sharks for about 4 years now, they're cage diving with 7-gill cow sharks at the island. So everything's changed all around.
So the orcas aren't interested in the bronze whalers, or they don't seem to be, or?
Nobody really knows. I mean, this time when they came, the bronzies all disappeared. So we have seen absolutely nothing. We've been off because of bad weather, but it's like I said, it's been about 14 days now, but all our bronzies are gone as well.
Wow. And when I went there, it was nothing but white sharks. I never saw another species of sharks in Gansbaii. So it's just really interesting how the dynamic would change. And then I don't know if you're comfortable touching on this, but when that predator left, it seems like it made room for a different predator to move in and maybe even fill the niche, or at least just take opportunity of that other missing predator, the way the bronze whalers did. Does that explain the appearance of them?
I mean, I think when you do your interview with Mary, she'll be the better person to better explain that to you.
Okay.
They're more of a bottom-dwelling species, so the fact that we get them to come up and interact around the boat is still pretty fascinating. I mean, the other day we had them breaching around the boat as well, which is also pretty crazy. I didn't even know they breached. Um, yeah, I mean, the bronchies are cool. Definitely nice to have them. At least you have some kind of shark. But I think Barry would be the better person to touch on about replacing an apex predator and so forth.
Am I right in thinking bronzies predominantly feed on fish? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think they're mostly like sardines and so forth.
Right.
This will be conjecture since it just appeared on social media, but apparently Juan and Ocean went somewhere else and were successful in finding a white shark. And not only that, but
they went up to Plettenberg Bay.
And supposedly orcas are present, and yet for some reason that's not causing the white sharks to leave.
It's difficult to say because these two are just going up and down the coastline. So they've been seen in Plettenberg Bay, they've been seen outside Mossel Bay, but for some reason in False Bay and in Gansbaii, they've had the biggest impact. Now, what's the best way to say this? Like, when it comes to the killer whales, it's easy to blame them because you can put a face to them because we've seen them and then the sharks disappear. But I don't think they're the sole reason for the departure of the white sharks. I think, obviously with the trawlers and overfishing, and then more importantly, the people say there's no such thing as climate change. But here in the bay especially, normally like northwesterly winds warm up our water and all this stuff. But when we have our northwesterly winds now, the water is staying the same temperature or it gets colder with that wind blowing. So instead of jumping up to 16, 18 degrees, it stays at 15.5, 15.2, 15 degrees. So I think there's a different factors influencing everything. But like I said, I think it's just easier to say the one you can put a face to is the killer whales. And yes, they are a part of the problem, but I don't think they're the only factor.
So there's a lot of issues facing white sharks all at once.
Yeah. And then you have the domino effect as well, because now the seal pups from last year, that there's an overpopulation of seals. So now what's being threatened by that is the African penguin. So, there's a whole domino effect that comes with the whole disappearance of the white sharks.
That's very interesting. I love the ecological side of it. It's just something that I personally think humans don't usually even take the time to comprehend, the domino effect.
Mm.
And it extends to us, too. If the seals or other animals get out of control, it'll affect the fishing in the area. Will it not?
If there's even any fish left for them to go for. But, that's a whole side of the subject I don't really know too much about. We just know the disappearance of the white sharks. You can see some things are changing here.
Yeah.
So just to go back to the orcas for a moment, obviously as shark people, we don't want to see sharks being killed and taken out by another predator. With that aside, how close have you been able to witness these same two killer whales? You've been able to identify them, presumably, to be able to work out it is the same two. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, they're pretty easy to recognize. They call them port and starboard because the one's dorsal flops this way, the other one flops that way. So apparently they've been seen for like 20 years or so up and down the coastline. And so it's interesting in the sense, like back in the day, we'd lose our sharks in summer for like 30 days at a time, and we always say it's because of the cold water. But maybe what if it's always been because of these two? But again, nobody will ever know that. They've only just been sighted in our base starting February last year. And again, it was in May we realized what they were doing. But they've just been seen up and down the coastline. They were in Table Bay the other day, about 2 weeks ago, and then they were at Cape Point, and then they came back here. Before that, they were at Plettenberg Bay, and they bypassed us and went straight to Cape Town. So the problem with them is they're intelligent. They don't forget. So obviously they found a food source. They keep coming back to it. But I think maybe they've realized when they killed the sharks back to back, I think that they maybe realized that as soon as they kill one, the sharks disappear. So they killed in quick succession. They came back in June. There were no sharks. So maybe they've learned that the longer they stay away, the more likely it is for all the sharks to come back. And then they keep coming back to check.
Wow,
so, yeah,
that's an incredible level of intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, at the point now, I think we live more in fear of when It's not when do our white sharks come back, it's when do the killer whales come back.
Sure.
And
do you find it strange that... Do you find it strange that they're eating seals and not sharks?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating for us because we have such a big colony of seals on the island. So the fact that they don't go for them and killing our sharks is a big problem for us. It's not just that they're doing it here. They're doing it up and down the coastline. So how many white sharks are you actually losing at the end of the day?
Two questions on that. So like here in the California coast and going up north, there's orcas that are fish-eating orcas, and then there's ones that are pinniped eaters. Are the ones there known to strictly be fish eaters, or the not eating seals is a plentiful supply of seals is really intriguing.
Yeah, I don't know what they would be classified as, these two.
That would be interesting to find out what population there, because there's 10 subspecies of orca, isn't there, around the world, all feeding on various different things. So it'll be interesting to work out.
And for some reason, they're not wanted by other pods. I think there's something, I've heard about 17 different pods of killer whales, but every time they bump into another pod, the other pod chases them away. So they're not included in other pods of killer whales.
So it's truly just these two orcas that are wreaking havoc.
Yeah.
It's kind of terrifying, but also kind of incredible all at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know whether to be happy or sad.
I think what's more frustrating about killer whales is that they're efficient killers, but they're wasteful. In the sense that when they kill an animal, they're only going for specific parts of it. So with the white shark, it's just the liver. With our sharks, there's liver, heart, and testicles on the ones that killed. All the nutrient-rich parts, but again, when they kill whales and stuff, I've heard they only eat the tongue.
Yeah,
so
gray whales. Yeah.
They're very wasteful creatures in the sense of what they're going after.
Have you gone to Plettenberg Bay?
Yeah, I've been up to Plet.
I've seen some really cool aerial footage coming out of there, and I'm like,
yeah, I've seen that from the cliffs and stuff.
Yeah, is that like recently been discovered? I'm wondering why I've never heard of it previously.
No, I'm not too sure. I think they're only just going viral now. But yeah, I've seen about 2 or 3 different video clips from Plettenberg.
I want to, before we run out of time, I want to go to a fun part of the show that Dan's going to help out with, and you can chime in. It's going to be kind of like mimicking the celebrities read mean tweets, but Dan's going to read mean YouTube comments about our trip to Shark Alley back in 2004. You got those queued up, Dan, or shall we give you a minute?
I've got your list of comments here. I was just going to scroll through and see what makes me laugh. But the first one that I feel like needs some attention drawn to it is this one, which is, "This makes as much sense as beating off in church." Which, if you were going to have a tagline about your videos, Skyler, that's probably one of the best you could have, isn't it?
Does that apply to all of my videos? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Someone says, "Not for £1 million, will I do this?" Did you get any money for doing it?
No, it cost me money to go there and work for free and smell like tuna for probably 3 months after I got home.
And puke off the front of a boat.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you mention that, I'm going to go ahead and throw that footage in if I can find it. Lalo and I were drinking absinthe and royal vodka and
No. You were drinking absinthe.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Lalo leads a clean life. He was observing. And
I just remember looking at you and saying, "There's no way I'm going to do that."
Okay, I've got one for you both to have a think about. Lalo, you might want to answer this. So this was only a month ago, the comment. It says, "Chumming should be banned. The more we teach sharks to associate human presence with food, the more attacks will happen and the more sharks will be demonized."
That's always been a big controversy with what we do. And, unfortunately, it's just one of these things. That's why I love what we do, because you get to change people's perceptions and show them sharks for what they really are. But, everybody has this idea that because we do what we do, you're teasing the shark and then it swims by the cage, sees the person in the cage, and it says, "I'm going to get you," and then swims to the beach and then attacks a surfer or a swimmer. When in fact, the most important thing everybody forgets is that white sharks are natural. Is that we're in their home, we're in their territory. It's our playground, it's their home. And everyone says there's more and more shark attacks, but at the end of the day, if you look at it, the statistics stay the same: 5 to 7 shark attacks a year. And people forget that there's more and more people entering the ocean. There's better wetsuits, so people stay in the water a lot longer. But most importantly, we're removing the natural food stock from the ocean. So you put those three things together, the incident rate of shark-human interaction is bound to go on the increase. But the fact that there's still only 5 to 7 shark attacks a year goes to show that, there's not been an increase in that. But if they were really these human-killing machines, then there would be shark attacks every single day.
Well,
you look at how many millions of people are in the water.
On the years, though, when it goes from 5 to 7, that's because you were chumming.
Yeah.
And the sharks,
again,
the
like
sharks
I said,
swim.
it's always easier to put a face on something and blame something. At the end of the day, people, because of Jaws, people always have this fear of white sharks. They're always going to see them as this mindless killing machine. And so again, like, it's cool to take people out, change that perception. I remember I did a film shoot when I first started with a surfer who'd actually lost his leg to a white shark. And at the beginning, he said, "I don't want to be here. I don't want to be a part of this. I couldn't care about these animals." And at the end of the day, after we'd been out there, he came up after the trip and said, "I just want to shake your hand and say, thank you. I've actually changed my whole perception of what white sharks are." I think once people see them for what they really are, then they have a better understanding. And that's the most important part of what we do. You can't protect something unless you fully understand the animal. But that's also the fascination of the white sharks. No matter what we think we learn about them, they're always going to go and do something different that changes every perception you ever had about them.
Very, very good point. Skyler, do your giant balls float or do they sink?
They float.
And this one's relevant to what we were just talking about. King of the ocean, ? I'm pretty sure Shamu has something to say about that.
Yeah. People love to post that one. I got to rip on all. Everybody's hears something, and then they go and repeat it like they are these experienced biologists. And admittedly, it was not a smart thing to say, because we had orcas kill white sharks out here at the Farallon Islands in 1998. So I already knew that.
97, yes.
I already knew that. Shut up! Don't. I mean, I already knew that orcas killed white sharks, but I think it was just something that you heard so often that it kind of slips out of your mouth. King of the ocean. Yeah. And some people might still argue.
But funny enough, like, it's like you're saying, people think they're experienced. Like, I remember last season in Guadalupe, like, a client asked a question and I started to answer it based off my experience. I got interrupted by another client that said, no, Discovery Channel says this, and I was like, that's just a TV show. Would you rather believe that or what I'm telling you? And she's like, no, this is what I heard on TV, so it's got to be true.
It's interesting how TV is such an authority. And it's frightening how powerful that is, because you get someone on there that says complete rubbish, like our president, and it's the truth suddenly.
I mean, on that fact, based on documentaries, I remember we did a film shoot, which I'm sure you'll remember, and there's a producer came on and told me what it was about. I said, "There's no way, like, this is not a good idea." And it was the Megalodon episode on Shark Week, and it's crazy. Nobody really paid attention. It was only a small snippet at the end of it where they say this is a mockumentary. Mm-hmm. But I think it was something crazy, like 60% of people back home believe that Megalodon still exists now because of that show.
Yep. And as much flack as Discovery Channel got for that, their ratings still went up. So I think that they're willing to sacrifice the lack of credibility for ratings, which is kind of a sad thing to say. How often do you have a problem working with those Discovery crews versus being happy that they're on board?
Um, I don't know how to explain. Like, we don't have that many. That I think Guadalupe has become the place to film. I mean, we still do a couple episodes here, but it's been a while since I've worked with one. They always have crazy demands. Like, they want the heads tied to the cage. They want the shark to bite the cage. They want, like all these things that we work in conservation. You try to explain that we're not out there to get the animals injured. But they're, no, we need the shot. We need the shot. So you always kind of butt heads on what you can and can't do. Because at the end of the day, the shot that sells that everybody wants is a tee shot. And, again, we're out there to change perceptions. We're not there to demonize the shark and do it for TV, sensationalize it, and so forth.
How do you, out of interest, how do you have that conversation with them when you're trying to say that you're not trying to get that scary shot? Do they listen to you at all, or are they purely interested in only getting that shot?
No, not really. I remember we took a recce out. We took the director of Dark Tide out on our boat. And I did this whole conservation speech, and I said, after what Jaws did to these sharks, don't you think it's time that Hollywood moves away from this negative thing about sharks? And at the end of the day, it's what's always going to sell. And, so they asked if I would be one of the safety divers on the movie, and I was like, thank you, but no thank you. And they looked at me and said, really? I said, yeah, because the name of the movie is Dark Tide. So at the end of the day, that only says one thing to me. That's blood in the water. So what's going to happen in the movie? A bunch of people are going to be in the water, and they're going to get killed by white sharks. It's just Jaws all over again. And so I said, after everything I just said to you, I cannot be a part of that.
Wow.
Which, that's, great on your part, credibility to you. The disappointing part is that it wasn't hard for them to probably go and find someone else to take your spot.
Yeah, I mean, what was more frustrating about that is I think they spent $4 million on that movie, and it made $450,000 in the box office. And I'm just thinking that's $4 million that could have gone to shark conservation and research.
Yeah.
So does Discovery do more good for sharks or bad?
I think, obviously Shark Week is a huge thing. I grew up on Shark Week, but I remember when it was more educational. I was back home for the first time for Shark Week last year, and I think 15 minutes into the opening episode, I turned the TV on. I was yelling at the TV more than I was watching it. So
Yeah.
for me, it's cool to be a part of the project if it's done properly, but, at the same time, I guess it gets people interested. Maybe with the younger generation, we need to push for the conservation and trying to protect what's out there. So it's cool if it gets kids interested and want to be a marine biologist and working towards protecting the ocean and what lives in it. So I think it can help, but it can also hurt. It just keeps that fear alive.
So you've been telling people for 14 years, almost every day, about how amazing these animals are and seeing people's minds change. Do you sometimes feel like bashing your head against a wall by the time the next day comes around, you have to do it all over again? Or does it feel like it's getting through?
No, not really. I mean, I'd say you have three different kind of people that do this. You have your shark lover, you have your adrenaline junkie, and you have the person who just wants to tell all their friends that they did it. So it's annoying when you have clients in the cage who are like, come on, and start swearing, come on, bite the cage. So that kind of stuff is irritating. But I guess what's cool here is because we're doing day trips, is every day is different. Every day is somebody new from somewhere else in the world, so it gets repetitive. But when you have sharks, you never know what they're going to do, so there's always some kind of excitement to the trip. I'd say the only thing I miss after 14 years of it is the first time I went out to see one, the butterflies I had in my stomach, the excitement to see my favorite animal. But aside from that, yeah, I'm still in awe of them. They're amazing animals.
Yeah, it's an interesting part of white sharks. No matter how many times you see them, they kind of blow your mind. Dan, any more winning comments on there?
Well, I was just having a quick scroll through, and a lot of them say things like, you weren't swimming, you were wading, or you weren't swimming in Shark Alley, not even close, try going 70 yards out, which kind of ties into what you guys were talking about not long ago, about that you've seen sharks like that close to the rocks, so maybe you were in more danger than you previously thought you were.
Well, not only do they hunt close to the rocks, but that video shows how deep the water is. Like it's an immediate drop off. That footage,
Yeah, it's about 7 to 10 meters where we were.
that footage of the seals in the open water before we went to the kelp beds was right there where I got dropped in, and I was surprised when I got in. I was like, well, shit. I was hoping it was going to be more shallow, to be honest. So, and even if it was shallow, as people have documented, the white sharks will chase a seal right up against them.
Mm.
They will.
And as Lalo admitted to me later, he knew this very well.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on.
Do you want another one?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of King of the Ocean question mark based comments asking you to head further out.
People are bloodthirsty. A lot of people want me to die.
Yeah, anyone who swims in Shark Alley deserves to get eaten is one. If the sharks were there, I doubt the seals would be.
You want to take that one, Lalo?
I mean, I don't know where they'd expect the seals to be then. Like, I mean, the seals only go to sea to fish. They have to have a home somewhere. So, I mean, I don't know how else to explain that one. Like where they think you would find seals.
Hey, Lalo, as I go through your photos, can people purchase these anywhere?
I haven't done that yet. I'm busy building my website now. So it does have a gallery on it, and maybe eventually I'll open up a link for that. So yeah, I mean, I haven't really looked into that yet. But yeah, maybe one day once I have the collection I want, then it should be available.
What came first for you, out of interest? Was it the guiding, or the video? I can't remember if you mentioned anything.
No, video. I came as a client, and while I was on the boat, I met my old boss, and he started a video academy. So I came back to do that for 2 months, and I ended up working for him for 2.5 years. And then the company I'm with now, I've been with 11 years. They asked me to come be their guide and cameraman. So
the photography side of it, the imagery side of it, has always been an interest. You've always had that.
The video started it, and then I got my first. Well, I started taking surface pictures in like 2006, and then got my first housing in 2011. And I love filming them, but at the same time, I've kind of I love capturing that moment. Most of the photos, my favorite photo to capture, I call the white shark smile, where you get that perfect image because they all have their own individual personalities and so forth. So you get that perfect crescent smile swimming right at the camera. I love my white shark smiles.
A great one to specialize on.
I see different types of scars on some of the sharks that you took photos of. Is there a way to tell whether that was inflicted by a seal or by another shark or by hitting a rock or a cage?
You can tell which of the boats sometimes are like some of them have paint on them and so forth, so you can tell which boat it was at. Scratches on the nose, usually from the seals. Obviously deep gashes by the gills and the top of the head are usually from another shark. You see some sharks with their pectorals bitten. But yeah, you can usually tell the markings from another shark.
Lalo, what's the best way to defend the cage dive industry as a conservation platform when sharks do sometimes get injured?
I mean, at that point, like that video that went viral in Guadeloupe, I mean, that's based off the individual operator. I mean, you can't be doing it if you don't understand or know the shark's body language. Like for us in Guadeloupe on our boat, if we have a shark that's speedy and fast rushing the bait line, we take the bait lines out of the water. You remove that chance for the shark to get hurt. So you just have to be aware of the animal you're working with, and remember that you're there to change people's perception, not make the adrenaline show out of it, and injure the sharks. So yeah, I mean, I think most of the time when sharks bash the cage, it's just human error.
Well, but then the argument would be, if the humans weren't there, then the sharks wouldn't be getting hurt. What else would happen? What else would happen if the humans weren't there?
Who knows? I mean, there might be people out there poaching them, hunting them. I think, I think in the terms of protection, you can monitor the population and so forth. Without us there, who knows how many sharks would be disappearing? What would be happening to them?
That was my bottom line. I put out a video called "Cage Diving: The Bottom Line," and the end argument was that, unfortunately, they might be wiped out much faster.
Yeah. I mean, I know we found out something we didn't even know was one of the tag sharks. She started pinging inshore up in Mozambique, and nobody could figure out why. And when they finally sent somebody up to check, they found her fins hacked off in the fisherman's hut. So, I mean, unfortunately, that's lack of education up there. The Chinese have moved in and say, we'll quadruple your monthly salary if you catch us a white shark. So, the fisherman has to decide between feeding his family for 4 months or not. And, this is one of these unfortunate things that we need. This is why we do what we do, to change the laws and get the animal more protected.
Yeah. Unfortunately, at that point, I don't even know if we can attribute it to a lack of education, because even if they do know better, if it's coming down to money, maybe they're going to make the wrong choice anyway.
Yeah.
Dan?
I found my favorite comment.
Okay.
It is, seals poop in sharks' mouths.
All right. That's our YouTubers.
I'd love to read the scientific paper on that one.
So, Lalo, after all these years, you're actually going to finally call it quits, and you're coming back to the States. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm focusing more on Guadalupe. I'm going to be based in San Diego, and it's just giving me an opportunity to, on the side, launch my own company. This is my Shark Life, so it's dive bookings company, shark diving booking company. So focus on responsible tourism, eco-friendly charters, and people who manage their environmental footprint. But yeah, it's for shark lovers out there to try to help them book that specific trip to their needs.
When will people have access to that? When can they actually book through that?
The website should be up in the next week or so, and then you can always email me at thisismysharklife@gmail.com. But yeah, Guadalupe trips, that's definitely on there, diving in San Diego, and I do charters, well, not charters, but can book you in South Africa, and I'm working on a couple other shark locations around the world.
And you've just recently become engaged.
That is true.
Congratulations. Big deal.
Thanks, bud.
Busy man.
Yeah, so time to grow up a little bit and make the leap back to the States and focus on starting a new life.
So if I drive down to San Diego to say hi to you, you won't have a drink of absinthe with me for old time's sake?
No, but I might take you and we can go snorkeling and out at Sofa out there.
If you can get me out there, I'll do it.
Or maybe I pay you to swim from the boat to the island at Guadalupe. Who knows?
Yeah, I'd have to be on absinthe to do that.
I'd pay to see that.
Yeah. All right, Lalo, thanks for joining us. I don't want to cut you off too soon. Is there anything that we didn't talk to you about?
No, I think we covered everything, man.
Dan?
That's all good.
All right. And we spoke about orcas. Dan is about to go and film orcas in British Columbia, and that are also facing some hard times. So I'll put a link in the description here to get behind that project if people are interested, as well as Lalo's information. And yep. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks Lalo. Lalo is in South Africa. Dan is in England. I'm in California. So it was a strong effort on their part to join for this. So thanks, everyone, and thanks for watching.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
You bet. See you in San Diego.